Hello, I'm Charlie.
I'm Danielle.
And together we are LARP Larks.
Yes.
And today we're going to get back into Winds of Fortune with the 2 released last night. There were 4 released yesterday, I believe.
Yeah.
So it was all kicking off, but we've got 2 today.
Yeah, we were reading through the Winds of Fortune last night, and we had 2 queued up. One relating to the plenipotentiary thing, and then another still relating to the plenipotentiary thing. And by the time we'd finished with those, they published 2 more relating to the appraisals.
And at the time, they looked really long, but they actually aren't that long. It turns
out we were just really tired.
We were just quite tired. So today we're going to get into it, and we're going to be looking through An Angry Blade and Parched Earth.
Yeah.
So if I'll bring it up properly so we can see it. And then we've got this. So what we're going to do today, I should say, about the winds, we're going to talk through as we read it out loud. We have thought we might try maybe on another day, like later this week, a sort of more bulletin style.
Yeah, maybe
just to see what
abridging
suits.
it slightly.
Yeah.
At the moment, we're literally reading through the wind for the first time here.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's easier to listen to than it is to read sometimes as well. But we're reading through it as it is, and then just kind of live responding, giving our thoughts and feelings to it. But if that's too long form, then we might switch to a more bulletin style. We'll see. One of the things I'll say about these 2 wins that we're going to look at today, they're both appraisals, which my understanding is the appraisal system is something that the Imperial Senate can do during the game. So this is something that the Imperial Senate have chosen to do in E1, where they have appointed an NPC to research something very specific, to research something that is of concern to them. So anything that says appraisal next to it, it will have had a researcher looking at something that a player or a set of players really wanted to get an answer to.
That's very cool. I actually didn't know that. So that's really good information, because then that means this is players being like, we want this law, please.
Yeah.
And now they're coming back to us with the law that we've asked for.
It's either a big existing problem, which I think both of these are, and it's people looking for solutions, people looking for what's the answer. Let's set a researcher on it and find out what's happening, what we can do about it. Yeah. Or it could be something completely brand new that the players just think, oh, I'm actually quite interested in what this is. So, but yeah, we'll start. I think.
Yeah, we'll hop in. I'll start reading the yellow bit because it's the best bit. And
yeah, the yellow bit is always a little bit of lore, a little bit of background, a little bit of role play. That is somehow relevant, somehow at some point relevant to the actual story.
Though this time, I think both of them are connected to like Freeborn, Madruga, this kind of stuff. So there's no like Marcher accents or anything to play with this time.
What a shame!
Unfortunately.
What a shame!
But
accent.
We can still play around. So we'll jump in. So Graciana watched the corsairs as they moved swiftly around the vessel, quickly and skillfully furling the mainsail as the red dawn glided towards the jetty. It was a dangerous maneuver, especially at the speed the vessel was moving. Safer to come in slower, and safer by far to have a pilot vessel bring the ship in. Slower meant less risky, but also less exhilarating. And if you need to reach a hostile quayside quickly, then slower could also mean dead. The Corsair families practice these skills for a reason. You never know when you might need them. In a matter of moments, there were a dozen Freeborn soldiers swarming onto the dock, hauling onto the thick hawsers to help the vessel into its berth. The rest of the crew didn't wait for them to tie off, throwing out the gangplanks as soon as the dock was close enough to reach it. It was an impressive and elegant feat of coordination and skill, and just what Graciana had been hoping to see. She fought the urge to push forwards, to walk up the gangplank, and to feel the deck beneath her feet. 10 years on land now had done nothing to diminish her love of the sea. But this was not her ship. That was long gone. If she wanted to make a good impression on Captain Salvador, she would need to do them the courtesy of waiting for them to disembark. So she waited patiently as they secured the vessel and began unloading the cargo even. Finally, as the last amphora of wine were moved to the quayside, she stepped forward to approach the ship, put one foot on the gangplank, then stopped. "May I have your permission to come aboard, Captain?" she asked. She might have marched on board a normal ship, but the Red Dawn was still a military vessel and part of the detachment of the ships that were supported the Redwind Corsairs. Still, she was up on the deck in the blink of an eye, and soon as she got the nod, partly because she couldn't wait to be back on deck, and partly because she knew it wouldn't hurt to let those watching her move confidently aboard. She smiled as the captain came over with a quizzical look in his face. "I have a proposal to discuss with you," she explained, and then she smiled again. "One I hope will be to your advantage."
Yes. So Graciana, I'm sure it's about to delve into it and explain it. Graciana is one of the NPC researchers. So you'll see this person come up. I don't know in game how you choose who does what. I'm sure there's a way of doing it, and I'm sure each researcher has a very particular set of skills.
Yes.
But Graciana is the NPC researcher that has been sent on whatever this is about. It's okay. I'll have a go reading.
Yep.
I'm losing my voice already,
but
I'll tap out and you can jump in. So in the overview, the Imperial Senate has instructed Graciana y Lopez y Guerra to appraise options to deploy Imperial fleet captains to disrupt enemy naval and logistical operations in the Bay of Catazar. With the Empire facing 4 Grendel navies, there is a pressing need to find a way to counter that threat, and the recent attack on Madruga has created a burning need for vengeance in the hearts of many Freeborn. Graciana is an excellent choice for the appraisal. More than her reputation for novel and imaginative solutions, she was once a successful corsair herself. Surely, if anyone can find a way for Imperial fleets to take the fight to the Grendel, it is Graciana. Unfortunately, the short answer appears to be no. Despite her best efforts, Graciana is unable to achieve the ideal, to find a way for Imperial fleets to directly counter the threat posed by the Grendel. There is a long answer, of course. She does have 4 proposals the Senate to consider that hew as close as possible to the Senate's instructions. So I think some maybe background on what's going on in the Bay of Catazar would be good.
Interesting. This is interesting, especially coming after yesterday's wins that were talking about how one of the Eternals has presented some, illegal boons potentially that people could take up. Presently illegal. And if this research is being like, we kind of don't have anything. We have some stuff here. The other options, as we see in the wins, are going to be illegal currently. Or, some bureaucracy will have to happen for it to become less illegal. Yeah,
so I think the relevant background here, the kind of piece of information that's missing is that I believe, not to make too sweeping of a statement of it, but the Bay of Catazar has been lost. We don't have it anymore.
The Freeborn, I think, because Sarvos is still on the bay. But there's not that. We're losing a lot of the Bay of Catazar. That's not very good.
My understanding is that there has been significant naval port losses. There are plenty of people, this may be rude to say, but there are plenty of people who did say the Brass Coast no longer has a coast, which is fairly cutting. But it would make sense as to why the Senate has instructed Graciana to figure out a way to stop that from getting worse. If the Grendel navies are constantly raiding, claiming, sacking ports, what can we do to stop that? And that's the question that's been posed.
Definitely.
And that was the role play bit at the beginning, was Graciana stepping on board a ship and putting her hands on her hips and saying, I'm going to fix this problem.
Yes.
So, but she has 4 proposals.
Yes. And this starts with the proposed appraisal, like whatever the Senate version of like
the
a
Senate,
mandate
the Senate
is.
instruction
Yes.
for an appraisal. Yeah.
So the Senate requests Graciana to conduct an appraisal of the methods to deploy Imperial fleet captains to disrupt enemy naval and logistical operations in the Bay of Katazar, and that is proposed by Miarin and seconded by the Barons.
Yep.
So it seems like the most useful outcome would be for the Imperial fleet captains to band together and try to oppose a Grendel navy directly. Graciana spends weeks looking at options for that, but it's clear there is one and only one effective way to do that, and that is to construct an Imperial navy. When the Freeborn storm fought the Grendel, the Empire routinely saw scores of fleet captains choosing to support them. There is every reason to think that would happen again. There is every reason to think that would happen again. It is clear that Corsairs and others are keen to take fight to the Grendel directly. Building a new navy would enable hundreds of fleet captains to take the fight directly to the Grendel.
So we've got a solution straight away. We need a navy. I don't think, particularly based on that, the Empire has a navy.
No.
The Empire has a collection of people what sail about. So there is no coordinated naval effort.
Yes, and I actually learned about that from someone at the last. Because there was someone who was interested in like basically asking why there isn't a navy. Yeah. So that could be some great information for them.
Did you find out why why the Empire never made a navy, or do you just not know?
I think we just didn't make one. Didn't see it as a important thing at the time.
Now we've lost every piece of water.
Yeah. Or like the biggest piece of water, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so but it's not possible to do, is it that?
Yes.
Yeah. But it's not possible to do without an Imperial navy to support. Fleets are simply too small to directly oppose an entire navy. They lack the central coordination needed to bring them together as an effective military force. They are potent when acting in support of an Imperial navy, but without that, they would be quickly scattered or sunk. It is the same reason military units cannot directly oppose a barbarian army. They are powerful in support of an Imperial army, but alone they will be quickly driven off or destroyed. Graciana notes that this is not a consequence of the Empire's limited experience with naval warfare. She points out that 3 Asavean warships are in some ways similar to a very large and powerful Imperial fleet. But even the Asaveans, with all their expertise and long history with naval warfare, were unable to use their warships directly. They had to wait for the Grendel to attack so they could offer their support. If the Empire wants naval fleets to be able to directly oppose the Grendel, the only really effective way to do that is to raise a navy. Navies are expensive. They need as much weirwood as an army needs mithril, and they take just as long to raise. They also require the Empire to possess a shipyard, which is a significant investment and immediately becomes a strategic target for the Empire's enemies. But given the Grendel's huge naval advantage over the Empire, they have at least 4 navies that the Empire knows of. It is debatable whether the Empire could ever fully defeat them without building a substantial navy of their own. In theory, it might be possible to fortify the Bay of Katazar to hold them off long enough for armies to reach Dubtreg, but there is a very sheer cliff to climb.
So the principle is sound. We need an army of some navy of some description.
Yep.
But making a navy ain't easy.
And we've got a few, like, I guess, are they great works? We've got a shipyard, we've got a sinecure, we've got an Imperial position. So there's a huge load of game opening up here.
Yeah, a huge load of mechanical stuff, huge load of things that can be sponsored or set up to move towards a navy.
Which is very exciting.
I'll give it a go.
Give it a go, yeah.
Dear perfection. The most obvious solution to the problem would be for the Empire to raise a navy. Of course, that solution is incredibly expensive, but that doesn't remotely concern Graciana. Costs are the Senate's problem. Given her reputation for producing expensive solutions, she often takes the view that the Empire wouldn't ask her to do an appraisal if costs were an issue. The traditional place to raise a navy would be the Brass Coast. They are the preeminent sailors in the Empire. There are more fleets in the post than any other nation by far. Unfortunately, launching a navy here would be very difficult. The Grendel burned the Italia shipyards, and when the Empire rebuilt them, the Grendel quickly moved to capture them. It is clear that any navy raised on the Brass Coast would be exceptionally vulnerable right now. One place that might be able to provide a safe harbour from which to launch a navy is the port of Elos. The docks were only recently upgraded, and while they aren't yet big enough to allow the Empire to build a navy there, they could be quickly upgraded. What is more, the existing facilities are sufficiently impressive that the Empire could begin work raising the navy at the same time that the work was being done to upgrade the docks. The shipyards were completed before the navy was launched. Perhaps, most importantly of all, the Penumbral Watcher could redirect the night mages under their authority to weave enchantments to shroud the docks, hiding what was taking place from the Grendel spies. That could prove crucial in allowing the Empire to complete the docks and the navy before the Grendel could get wind of what was going on. While studying the previous proposals, Graciana is fascinated to learn that it might be possible for Urizen to commission a navy to operate alongside the Citadel Guard. The nation is notoriously short of soldiers. The Citadel Guard is one of the most famous Imperial armies with good reason, but there is only one of them. An opportunity to build a new Urizeni navy might solve two of the Empire's problems with one stone. Graciana's plans are not cheap, involving a large expansion of the Urizen's naval capabilities, starting with building a shipyard at Elos. That expansion would require 10 wains of white granite, 10 wains of weirwood, and 60 crowns, and take 3 months to complete. That would be sufficient to allow Imperial navies to be built there. In addition, her plans involve new upgraded cranes at Cargo, which would need 25 wains of mithril and 75 crowns. That would raise the level of investment for businesses in Redoubt by 1. I'll pause there. Could we just scroll up to the actual improvements?
Oh, yeah. So we've got the Elos shipyards. We've just heard the cost: white granite, weirwood, 60 crowns, 3 months. And it allows the navies to be raised at Elos. A navy should be commissioned here at the same time the shipyard is being built, which is a really, I think having a Urizeni navy is very interesting.
Yeah.
Because they aren't really fighters at all. So having that side of them, like almost like having a chance for them to participate in, like, I guess, warfare in that way. Yeah, is quite interesting.
It's one of these where there is, and I think I saw this quite commonly in the Winds before. There is a good and a better and a better and a better approach, and it's never really a matter of necessarily by automatically doing all of them. It's kind of assumed that if you did everything, while it might have some drawbacks in certain ways, it's going to be fantastic if you do everything.
Yeah.
But that might not happen unless it really gets some solid support. The shipyards, like the Elos shipyards, seem to be the bare minimum for allowing navies to be raised. The cranes they don't affect navies. They only raise investment in businesses. But the Nostos docks can't be built unless both of the previous improvements are also built, because they need the cranes to get supply materials there. So it is a case of good, better, best for getting the infrastructure in place to raise a navy.
Yeah, you have to fully buy into it to make it really happen, I think. And then there would be the Architect of the Conscious River produced as a imperial position.
I think we're just about to get into that.
Yeah. So should I take this?
Yeah, please.
Finally, Graciana's plan involves a new facility at the Conscious River near Cantaspire in Morrow. This small spire is built on the banks of Nostos, a tributary that flows from Cantaspire down to the river Kuros, or Koros. The Conscious River is mostly populated by architects who study Oh my gosh. The Conscious River is mostly populated by architects who study river economics, despite the fact there is relatively little trade down the Nostos. However, Together, they have devised a proposal to construct the new docks here to make a burgeoning river port. The commission would require 18 wains of white granite, 54 crowns, and would boost trade in Tempest jade and green iron. That would create a sinecure, the architect of the conscious river, that would benefit from 10 Tempest jade and 5 green iron each season. More importantly, the docks would facilitate the production and distribution of weirwood from a nearby canterspire, raising output from the bore seat by 4 wains to a total 26 wains of weirwood each season. The wood is crucial for building fleets and navies, so if all 3 commissions were built and Graciana accepts that this is an expensive proposition, then the combined benefits would be sufficient to enable Horizon to support a single navy alongside the Citadel Guard. Each of the 3 commissions would require a commission slot, but they could all be built independently at any time.
Yeah, so I think it's important to talk about commission slots here.
Mm-hmm.
There are a limited number of commission slots that the Imperial Senate can kind of hand out at an event and build various commissions, be they great works or ministries or sinecures or whatever form they take. I don't know how many commission slots there are. I don't know how it's calculated. I'm sure there's a way. But the idea is that you can't do everything.
Yep.
And I think the driving intention here is, how do we build a navy? Well, you could rebuild these docks here, or you could pour all this time and money into Horizon to give them the infrastructure to build a shipyard there as well. So a couple of good options for getting a navy raised.
Which could make Horizon quite happy considering their losses and things, but they could also not want it. So
Horizon has kind of got the short end of the stick for a little while now. So I'm sure some investment would go a long way towards good vibes.
Good vibes all around. So the next option is for that name. So one of the factors that has made the Brass Coast so vulnerable to attack from the Grendel is the complete lack of any fortifications in the nation. Empress Lisbetta's bold plan to fortify the coastline of the Bay of Catasar saw fortification raised at Mora's Rock in Feroz, but that fortification was traded to the Grendel years ago to buy 2 more years of peace. A more impressive fortification, the Salt Guard that protected Madruga, was supposed to make the naval assault impossible, but apparently nobody told the Grendel. It was ruined when they attacked the city in overwhelming numbers. Graciana is keen to improve on Menno's design and fix what she sees as a crucial flaw, the reliance of Imperial armies to be adequately defend any fortification. Rather than a single great stone structure at Siroc, Graciana proposes to build small fortified jetties and docks throughout many islands of free landing. Her free docks would require 50 wains of white granite, 50 wains of weirwood, 300 crowns, and take a year to construct, but once complete, they would make it more difficult to attack Madruga by effectively serving as a basic fortification in free landing. More importantly, Corsairs and other Imperial fleets could make the extensive use of the free docks to help counter any attack on free landing or Madruga that came from the sea. This would mean that the fleet captains could choose to commit themselves in defense of free landing by supporting that free docks. In the same way that the military captains can choose to help defend an Imperial fortification, they would only provide any benefit if Madruga was attacked by a navy. The fleets wouldn't be effective against an army. But if the Grendel did attack Madruga by sea, then the Imperial fleet captains would be able to disrupt the enemy naval and logistical operations as requested. The commission could be built at any time in free landing, but of course the Empire would have to control the area. It would be foolish beyond belief to attempt to raise the free docks when the Grendel hold Madruga.
Yeah, makes sense. So it is a very cool combination of a shipyard, again, another place that you can raise a navy from, but also it is grand and impressive enough that you can use it as a fortification. It is a defensible location, defensible from the sea only, but that is what we are worried about, effectively.
But we need to take back Madruga first to be able to do that.
You can't
so there's a small
build a dock, build a shipyard in someone else's territory.
Yes. And fortify them against
fortify them against you.
So the next one, shall I take this or
please.
Yeah. Hear more. One way that the Empire has been able to utilize fleets to help in military efforts is to employ them to spy on the Grendel. Information can be crucial in victory in war, and the Empire were able to develop an effective network in Shantarim, and that allowed captains to support the network, allowing it to gather crucial information just as military units will support a regular spy network. That spy network is gone now, destroyed when the Assaveans raised the Isle of Oseni. Was it Ossini or anyway?
Orsini, maybe,
Orsini?
yeah.
Oh, Orsini sounds right. But Graciana is convinced that techniques employed there could be reused. She spends time liaising with the War Scouts to discuss what might be involved. After a lot of work, they produce a set of plans that would allow the Empire to create smugglers' coves, effectively spy networks for fleets. Each cove would need to be commissioned in a territory adjacent to a region controlled by the Empire. It would require a commission slot and take 10 wains of white granite and 30 crowns. The Smuggler's Cove wouldn't need to be built in a coastal region, but it could only be commissioned in a territory that had a coastline that Imperial fleets could reach. Building a Smuggler's Cove would be a standard commission that requires an appropriately worded Senate motion. Alternatively, the Imperial Senate could use the Senate motion to grant Imperial Spy Master the power to commission a Smuggler's Cove instead of a spy network each season.
Right.
Okay.
So there's no more breakdown of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I don't know how that works in practice.
Okay.
I think I understand the concept.
Yeah.
You know, I understand the notion that Graciana has looked and seen that we have had smugglers' coves and spy networks function well in other territories. So it makes sense that we could establish those things in adjacent territories that we don't own. How that actually feeds back, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know what that looks like. There's no indication that it takes the commission slot and it takes white granite and crowns, but there's no indication that
how it goes
of what it actually looks like once it's built.
Yeah. So I think this would be going to the Senate and like putting this forward to build a Smuggler's Cove, and it says alternatively they could grant the Spy Master the power to commission a Smuggler's Cove instead of a spy network. So I assume they can commission a spy network, the Spy Master, each season, and this would just like change it to a Smuggler's Cove, which is cool.
My impression is that the Imperial Spy Master likely receives all relevant information from all spy networks and smugglers' coves that have been set up. That is a guess. I don't really know, and it doesn't really say.
But I think that could be interesting. I think maybe it's so open just because where you could set one up is so open.
Just
it basically has
the
to be
nature of the
any
information
sort of
you might get.
Watery place that
it's an interesting, I suppose, in a sense, it's an interesting proposition to spend a bunch of time building a Smuggler's Cove in a place that you intend to immediately conquer. Well,
it has to be on our territory.
No, I think
or attached to.
I think we're allowed to establish it in an adjacent territory.
Adjacent. There we go.
So that means you can establish a Smuggler's Cove
next to
in an enemy territory. Because that's who you're spying on. But then if you conquer that implies that it's now a wasted Smuggler's Cove because you own it already. But did it provide good information to help you conquer it?
It definitely could.
I don't know how spying works.
Yeah.
Talk to your Imperial Spy Master.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll know.
That sounds interesting. And we've got Speak at This. And this is the last? Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
This is the last proposal from Graciana. Graciana devotes some significant chunk of her time to discussions with the Corsair families of the Brass Coast, with whom she shares kinship and a long affiliation, convinced that if anyone can find a way to achieve the Senate's goals, it is them. Let's see. It's them. If they're unable to turn up anything new, they are unable to turn up anything new, but when their discussion shifts to the Freeborn armies, a novel just does emerge. The Red Wind Corsairs takes its name from the many Corsairs who serve in the army. For many years, it was the closest thing the Empire had to a naval force. Many of the Red Wind soldiers already have experience serving as sailors, more than enough to teach those amongst their ranks who do not yet have their sea legs. The force also enjoys the support of a number of boats and ships with a connections to the Corsair families of the coast. It could quickly call on many more. If the Empire really needs a navy, then perhaps what they need is already in front of their eyes. To make a plan a reality would require some investment, enough to build a trio of large, powerful ships that could come from the core of the force when it was at sea. That would need 80 weirwood and 240 crowns and 6 months to complete, but it could be done at any time, even when the Corsairs are on active engagement. Once the workers are complete, the Corsairs would gain a new quality, forayers, which in addition to their ability to plunder the enemy in the battle, would allow them to submit new orders to change from being an army to a navy or back.
Okay. So there might be a, sort of an already existing
like
kind army that can also function as a navy, given the right investment.
Yeah, which is very cool. Yeah, great. Yeah.
It says mechanically the daring quality is being upgraded to foraying. I don't know what the daring quality is, but foraying, being able to switch into a navy, to an army, to a navy, to an army, as and when it's appropriate, seems pretty useful right now.
And this is what that is basically. So a forayer. A foraying army is made up of soldiers with an extensive experience of fighting in naval battles, such as the Corsairs from the Brass Coast. They also have access to the kind of powerful fighting ships that are needed to fight effectively at sea. This allows them to operate either in either domain, switching between the two as needs must. Embarking or disembarking takes a season, and the force is vulnerable to while that happens, but they can move off as normal in the following season once the change is complete. The Red Wind Corsairs could only use the ability in the Bay of Katazar at present. They also excel at stripping enemy settlements and casualties of valuables. The Freeborn Red Wind Corsairs are also known for their ability to gather resources in enemy territory prior to the embrace of the idea of ransoming their enemies rather than simply robbing them. Some Wintermark armies find fighting alongside a foraying army distasteful. The deeply ingrained cultural dislike for maggots is well known.
Oh, I vaguely remember this.
I feel like I've heard maggots before. What is it? Those who use skills to enrich themselves are often called maggots. Maggot is Wintermark slang for a looter on a battlefield. Interesting.
So it is a self-interested person, as it were. A pirate, a looter, etc.
And this is the last little section of it called Take to the Sea. The army retains access to numerous ships and vessels that are powerful enough to make a difference in naval battles. Either vessels that are directly part of the army or aid from the Corsair families of the Brass Coast are all they can call on. By spending a season in the coastal region, changing the operation and arrangement of force, they can embark on these ships to become a navy at the start of the following season. If the force are not attacked during this time, they can resupply as normal. If they are attacked, their ability to defend the region will be compromised and they will suffer higher casualties. The Corsairs can use the same order to return to land-based operations, spending a season to cease being a navy and become an army once more.
So there is a downside in the sense that you have to spend time becoming a navy or becoming an army.
Yeah, and there's just a few more things. Casualties inflicted by this army are reduced by 2/5. The ability of this army to defend territory is reduced by 1/5.
Yeah.
Casualties suffered by the army are increased by 2/5. At the end of the season, the army converts to a navy or vice versa.
Yeah, the idea being that the army or navy is relevant is much less effective and much more vulnerable while they are converting their purpose from one to the other.
Yeah, it can't be a constant state of switching back and forth. It's got to be a very well thought out strategic thing.
So I kind of want to just quickly overview all of those 4 options again.
Yeah.
Just put forward by Graciana. So the problem was that the Grendel are in the Bay of Katazar. They are in lots of other places.
Yep.
And we do not have a way of getting rid of them. And the only solution that Graciana has been able to find is that the Empire needs to raise a navy in some way, shape or form to get rid of the Grendel.
So first one is to basically make a navy and build the infrastructure for that on Urizen lands. And so there would be a Urizeni navy potentially, which is very interesting. And there's lots of opportunities attached to that, but lots of things that have to be done to put it in place.
Yeah, lots of infrastructure that needs building.
Yeah. And then we've got the sort of free sort of shipyard. So for Madruga, if we are able to take it back, then there's an opportunity to create a very interesting kind of fortification that doesn't require an army to be present at it.
Yes.
And that could protect the coast of Madruga.
Instead can be reinforced by fleets. So that is, you've got your navy, you've pushed them back, you can then keep building on that as you go. And
then we've got a way to build smugglers' coves and spy networks and expand those along like seaways.
Yeah, so not a way of building a navy, but a way of gaining more information about our enemies.
Yep. And the Redwind Corsairs, we could make them into a navy.
A transformer.
Yeah, transformer.
They would like, and they go from a boat into a tank or something.
Yeah.
And a tank to a boat.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Okay.
All magic.
All magic.
Yeah, that's an overview of that.
Yes, first
There's
one.
a lot concerning the May of Katazar. If you're Brass Coast, you should definitely be looking at that because I think you're just going to keep losing land if not.
And the next one as well. The next one is also based around Madruga and all that kind of stuff as well.
It's also Brass Coast, so that is everything naval. Now it's everything on land.
Yeah. So what's left in Madruga basically, and what issues have been stirred up? This is mainly about the Blight and the dry patricians.
So for some background on that, as I understand it, the Blight in Madruga is something that has been roiling and expanding for 2 years.
Yeah, at some time.
And I don't think anyone has done anything about it. Which is cool. That's fine. It is a big problem now, but
it's a very big problem now. And the dry patricians. So it's almost like the Blight is like killing the land, and then the dry patricians are coming in, and they're kind of like these undead things, and we don't understand them.
Yeah, I think a cross between a mummy and a zombie is what I have in my mind.
And they are like what we are looking at here. Like, so we've sent someone to research into the dry patricians, which is very interesting.
This was a wind of fortune last time. We knew that whatever this Blight is, be it a curse or be it something else, stemmed from a particularly affluent family that was it was a highborn family, if I remember,
or at least just we knew it was connected to the highborns. I don't know if there was a specific family.
It was,
but there was like more
somehow.
history involving the highborn, but we don't quite understand it, and that's one of the things we could have researched.
Yeah, and that's like, how did it all start? Then there's this Blight, which is this parchedness, this dryness spread across the land. It is being pushed by an army of the dead, led by these dry patricians, who are seemingly very powerful. Well, I think they're seemingly very powerful things. They're not living, but they're not undead. I think they were, because
I think people can be turned into them as well.
Yeah, so
it's very kind of zombie.
It was very, very, very bad, and it got to the stage where I believe an entire territory had been lost to them, all of Madruga, and that meant that people turned their attention to it.
Yeah.
Because of course,
we lost the zombies there. Everything's
not only did we lose the territory to it, but there is no signs of it slowing down.
No.
So
it's scary.
Yeah, it's not a surprise that we had someone look at the problem.
I found out we've got a Varushkan looking into this, which is great. So Parched Earth. Lutamizla paced up and down the parador, leaving her glass of Syrah untouched. The work with the magicians of the unfettered mind was going well, and together they were making excellent progress on the initial section of the appraisal. Provided the Empire could make the necessary preparations, she was confident that they would be able to destroy these dry patricians. That would remove the immediate threat of the Blight and buy time to find the source of this threat and deal with it. There was no progress on that part yet, but hopefully the silent bell would turn up something useful. But that was still left the problem of how to remove the blight once the source was dealt with. Using magic to hold a curse at bay had prevented it spreading to the rest of Madruga, but the price for that had been paid by the great grasses. The once beautiful grasslands were now a wasteland, blighted by drought and rendered barren and utterly uninhabitable. Someone, something, some power had invoked a cruel hunger of the winter on the mortal world, literally salting the earth. In the theory, the land might recover naturally once the curse was broken, but that could take decades or more. There had to be a better way. But thus far, they had nothing to show for their efforts. One of her fellow magicians called her name, and without thinking, she spun to face him. Her long, heavy robes billowed out at the hem, and her hem caught the stem of a fine glass, sending it tumbling. The contents cascading over the table and all over her precious notes. She shrieked in horror and frantically tried to blot the page, but it was painfully clear it was already too late. The ink had still been wet, and now the bitter Syrah had washed it clean. There was nothing to be saved. She might as well be blotting an empty page for all the good it was doing. An empty page. She might as well be blotting an empty page. Virgil, she shouted, leaping to her feet and waving the sodden pages around triumphantly. I think I've got it.
A eureka moment.
Yeah.
So it seems that there are a bunch of issues that we're trying to tackle.
Yes.
It is contained for the time being, but it is absolutely ravaging the land. How do we stop it? How do we return the land to its former glory? And where is it all coming from?
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to...
I'll do the overview.
Yeah.
I'll see how far I get. If I pass out, just carry on.
Okay.
That's fine. Overview. The Imperial Senate has asked Lutomysla Nyegoslava to undertake an appraisal of the dry patrician problem in Madruga. The motion refers to a region in Madruga, the Great Grasses, which over the last year or so has been affected by a terrible magical curse, which has slowly blighted the area, turning it into a ruined wasteland. Nothing can live there now. The only thing that endures are awful entities that the Empire has called the Parched, the zombies. Magicians of the Silver Chalice, who had an opportunity to study them, identified two different types of Parched, ash walkers and the more dangerous dry patricians. Together with the Blight itself, they represent a serious threat to the territory. The problem is very clearly magical in nature, so Lutomysla, as an experienced Kabbalist, seems like the ideal choice for this appraisal. The first step has been to liaise with the magicians of the Unfettered Mind. The Grand Master asked members of their order to research the Blight, and they have responded enthusiastically. Lutomysla finds it easy to work with the order, allowing them to conduct the mainstay of the magical research, while she focuses on the logistics needed to make their findings useful. The original plan was for the academically minded magicians to be protected by members of the Rod and Shield. The Grand Master of the Unfettered Mind asked the Rod and Shield to help, but since that request was not made on behalf of the Order, it has largely fallen on deaf ears. A conclave order won't take instruction in this way from the Grand Master of another order. Without the battle mages of the Rod and Shield to ensure safety, the risks faced by the Unfettered Mind have increased considerably. That has not limited what they can achieve, but it has put many of them in greater danger than they would otherwise be. After careful analysis of the threat posed by the Blight, Lutomysla and the Order have worked on a three-pronged approach to tackle the problem. Preventing the spread of the Blight is a key element and certainly seems like the pressing concern. However, any long-term solution also needs to consider what can be done to end the threat permanently, and more so what might be attempted to restore the land. With Lutomysla's help, the Order's magicians have been able to produce some answers to at least two of those questions.
Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah.
The Rod and Shield battle mages.
Yeah.
That just seems like a very interesting, bureaucracy issue.
Yeah.
Of well, we're not going to take orders from you, even though they wanted us to do it anyway. Yeah. But
yeah. So the idea. So this is an extension of the Wind of Fortune that was floated at E1.
Mhm.
The idea is that the Blight in Madruga has spread, and we had no idea what we were going to do about it.
Yeah.
And one of the things was you can send the Unfettered Mind, which is sort of like a magical research institute thing.
Mhm.
You can send them there, and they will investigate what is going on. They are not combat specialists. Please send them with protective force,
Yes.
the Order of the Rod and Shield. It seems that didn't happen for
Mhm.
whatever reason. We have sent them there unprotected. The Rod and Shield, for a bureaucratic or administrative reason, has not helped.
Yeah.
And while they have gathered useful information, they are at significant personal risk,
Yes.
which may materialize in the future as a material threat.
Mhm.
But let's have a look at the solutions that they've dug up to the
Right.
Dry Patricians and the Blight in Madruga.
Interesting. So, halting the curse. Having studied the movements of the Parched, the Unfettered Mind confirmed that each of the three rune-marked Dry Patricians is the focus of a significant expansion of the Blight.
Oh, I'm going to pause you there already, because
Okay.
the rune-marked Dry Patricians were a very
Yes.
specific thing that came up in the previous wind.
Mhm.
There were, I can't remember exactly how many Dry Patricians there were, but there were 3 identified that were very important. They were marked with the runes, like the rune of hunger and the other kind of runes like that. And they were the ones that were pushing the borders of the Blight. So they are at the head of an army of Ashwalkers, those mummy zombies, that are kind of heading up the expansion element of it. I think there are other Dry Patricians, potentially even other rune-marked Dry Patricians, but the ones that are pushing the boundaries and being the most threatening are these 3.
Okay. So they've got these three baddies, these 3 leaders.
3 baddies.
3 baddies. The situation in the Blight Heart is grave. It is not clear yet how it could be restored. That makes it more important than ever to ensure the Blight does not spread any further. The only way to achieve that in the short term is to intercept the 3 Dry Patricians and destroy them.
Seems reasonable. Seems like something we can do.
Previous work by Imperial magicians has established that a Dry Patrician can be destroyed using the Words of Ending ritual performed at magnitude 18. This ritual, which normally only affects magic items, will destroy one of those monsters because they are not alive in any meaningful sense of the word. No shade. This theory is...
No, we've decided that that's a fact, right?
This theory is supported by the ceremonies of insight, which reveal the Parched have no aura. They are not human, orcs, creatures of the realm, ghosts, or other.
Miscellaneous.
Rather, they are a construct of some kind, more akin to Ushabti, what are... let's have a look. More akin to Ushabti than anything conscious. Oh, the Ushabti are those magical beings that the Yurizani create, so they don't have to do anything physical.
Yeah, all physical labor in Horizon is done by constructs.
Yes.
Golems, as it were. And the idea is that these Dry Patricians are also golems, constructs of some kind.
They're more similar to that than anything else, really.
I'm going to read between the lines here. Someone's got to make a golem.
Yeah.
You know?
And they've they have a symbol on them, which actually which actually reminds me of this is me just getting excited by golems, but the original golems are from Jewish folklore, and they have a particular symbol on their head, and it might be someone's name or something, but the way you eliminate them is to kind of get rid of that symbol.
Interesting. I think the idea here is that they're not they're not living, they're not creatures, they're golems. And then the magic ritual that destroys magic items performed at a greater intensity is the same ritual that destroys them, which, by the way, is massive, because 1 season ago we had nothing. So that's great.
The lesser Parched, the Ashwalkers, are similar, but they can be destroyed with a less powerful ritual, Turns the Circle. All the evidence demonstrates that the Parched are filled with winter magic that resonates with hunger, perhaps drawn directly from a part of the winter realm known as the Silent Kingdom. Interesting. Shall we have a little look at that?
What the Silent Kingdom is.
The Silent Kingdom.
Just scroll up a little bit.
Yeah.
It appears to be one of the domains of Sorin, an Eternal of Winter.
Okay.
So there is some indication, the inference there, that Sorin is in some way responsible or involved.
Or has been like invoked to do this kind of thing or something.
Someone's come to some sort of arrangement. Yeah,
interesting. The nature of the hunger is to consume everything. As you grow hungrier, the feeling becomes all-consuming. Lutemisla believes that the essential nature of the Ashwalkers is that of a human body, crudely animated by winter magic to go in search of water to consume, but it's still a body. Hence why they are destroyed in a spring ritual that destroys a body. As their thirst can never be slaked, the longer the parched spend in the blight, the hungrier they become. Eventually, the winter magic completely consumes the body until all that is left is skin and bones. At the point, they need a more powerful ritual, like the words of ending, that can destroy an object or thing.
Okay. So I think this builds on something that came up in the previous wind, where if people die to the dry patricians or the parched, you kind of become one of them. Yeah. I think your body is raised and you stumble around eternally thirsty, looking for the slake which shall not come. And it sounds like from that, the idea is that you slowly just lose all life until you become a husk that is kept alive purely by magic. And that is the link to being a construct.
Interesting. 3 of the dry patricians are moving steadily towards the lands adjacent to the green grasses, accompanied by a large number of ashwalkers. If they are allowed to consume the water there, then after 3 seasons, those regions will become as blighted as the grasses are now. Conversely, it took a year for these 3 dry patricians to become so consumed by hunger that it drives them to leave the blight. Each patrician that the Empire can destroy will halt the threat to a neighboring region for a year. With careful examination of the Sentinel Gate, the Empire has managed to locate 3 different conjunctions that Imperial heroes could use to assail the dry patricians.
Yes. So we're trying to get a handle on it.
Yeah.
We've got these 3 dry patricians pushing the boundaries, and we need to get ahead of them and kill them. You've got to get to them. Yeah. I imagine they're very difficult to defeat. You've also got to do the ritual on them to actually kill them.
Yeah.
If you don't, it's going to get exponentially worse. It took 1 year for 3 of them to conquer this one region. It will take 3 seasons for 3 of them to conquer 3 more regions. It is going to get worse and worse and worse if it's not stopped.
Yeah, it sounds like they're like almost like slow moving, but they are just like all encompassing and destroying the land. Yeah. So it's just we don't want to destroy all of this territory completely.
Yeah. And every piece of territory that they go over and drain all the water from, it's going to take so long to try and restore that territory to its former health. Yeah. So, but yeah, what can we do to get ahead of them?
Okay, so we've got a skirmish called the Sobral Grasses. So this is the Yawn-marked patrician.
Yawn being one of the runes. I think Yawn is the hunger rune.
Maybe, might be wrong.
I'm not going to look it up.
Yeah, it was just not. Right, Gideon of the Farthest Shore is a highly skilled winter mage who enjoys the challenge of striving to cast the most powerful ritual enchantments possible while working alone. To achieve the most powerful effect.
A truly good wolf.
He really doesn't want to delegate at all.
He's like, I love doing everything by myself.
I love it. My favorite thing. Don't like anyone else. Just want to be powerful. To achieve the most powerful effects, he combines a ring of adversity and a phlegmatic staff with decoctions of the hungry moon.
He knows all of his little rituals and spells and items and effects.
To further boost his effective skill to the required 18 magnitude, he apparently called in a certain boon from the Eternal Kayla that he received some years ago. With her assistance, he was confident that he could perform the ritual alone, so he set out to confront one of the dry patricians.
Oh my God, this guy's going to do it all. We don't even need to go and help.
We don't need to go.
He's got it.
Fine.
He's got the ritual, magnitude 18. I mean, that's it. But that's all.
But he's got. It's all he needs.
That's all he needs.
Perhaps, predictably, that attempt has not gone as hoped.
Oh, okay, never mind.
The bodyguards who were with him have been overpowered, and he is trapped and unable to escape. If he is not rescued, he will surely die. If that happens, then it will make other members of the Order think twice before venturing into dangerous territory near the future. On their own, maybe. That would mean the unfettered mind won't respond to any attempts to have them undertake any action that could involve any risk of personal danger for the next year.
I think this more pressing element of rescue this guy is a reflection of not sending backup in the first place.
Yeah.
Because we didn't get the Order of the Rod and Shield to help and defend these people. Now they're getting into danger. And the unfettered mind is they're going to start saying, well, if people are getting into danger and dying, why are we getting into danger? But dying. Yeah. But maybe there's a way of not making him die.
Yes. Gideon's last known whereabouts were just north of Gita's Vales in the Sobral grasses in Segura. There is a conjunction to the site which is the best chance to rescue the magician. However, he went there intending to intercept the yawn-marked patrician that is heading in that direction. So it is also a chance to destroy one of the 3 dry patricians that is pushing the expansion out of the great grasses. Gideon is definitely still alive, so if the Empire can rescue him and overpower the Parched, then Gideon has everything he needs to perform words of ending to destroy the patrician himself. He will, of course, need to be protected throughout, particularly as he has already been shown to be have a somewhat cavalier approach to personal safety. Given that this is a clear threat to a member of the unfettered mind, it is the responsibility of the Grandmaster Eliza to rescue the magician and destroy the patrician.
Yes. So what that means functionally is that there's going to be a skirmish, which is a smaller battle, if you don't know what a skirmish is. So we have the big battles on Saturday and Sunday, and throughout the day and the night there are smaller battles called skirmishes.
Like all the time there are skirmishes.
All the time. Crazy. And this is one of them. The time isn't published yet.
Yeah, you usually have to go and find that out, because I think they can be very changeable at the event.
Sometimes you have to find them at the event as well. You have to do rituals at the Sentinel Gate to figure it out. The idea is that Eliza, as the Grandmaster, is the person in charge of arranging this skirmish. So if you want to get involved, you need to speak to that person. If you're interested in pushing back the dry patricians, helping to save the great grasses in Matruga,
or helping to save Gideon,
if
you care about him a lot,
getting an opportunity to berate a cavalier magician, because that'll be a time, or being part of a really cool mission to rescue, destroy, and get out of there while the whole place blows up behind you. That sounds really cool. I don't know whether it's going to be covered in this wind, but I do think that the dry patricians are particularly potent and lethal individuals. I would encourage you, if you are going on the skirmish, to prepare appropriately, because
as for any skirmish, we know skirmishes are dangerous.
Do your research, because I feel like going in unprepared, they could do any number of bad things, and you don't want to become a Parched. Do you?
I think part of me wonders whether they actually are that dangerous, or whether we literally just have ignored them for a very long time and they've now become a problem.
I think that's what Gideon thought, and now he's trapped behind enemy lines.
I guess maybe I'm not any better than Gideon.
Yeah, all too cavalier out there.
Maybe I should be a magician or anything. Okay, next is Jade Range. So this is another skirmish, makes sense. And it's the Irenaeus marked patrician. Again, it's another rune.
Irenaeus is another rune. I also don't know what that rune is.
No.
Marvellous.
Cool. No, we can look up Irenaeus, can't we?
Actually, the blade, rune of wisdom. I've just realised it's really important that you know what these runes look like. Because the dry patrician that you're going to be trying to kill will be marked with that rune.
Yeah, he's like the main guy.
Yeah, so you really should know what they look like.
I guess, yeah. I don't think there'll be many other big rune-covered people.
Oh, how deceptive would that be if every one of the Parched had a different rune and you had to know your runic alphabet to identify them?
I think you would just want to kill them all, though, right?
Yeah.
If you really want to.
I suppose you have to perform that ritual as well, so you want to be peace and quiet.
So Jade Range, one of the 3 rune-marked dry patricians, the one bearing the rune Irameus, is headed north to Blight, crossing the border into Karaman, which is, I believe,
north of Madruga.
North of Madruga, and I believe it's still, is it still part of, I'm just trying to figure out where it's part of.
Who owns it?
Yeah. Who does it belong to? Well, I think it might still be. Yeah, it must still be the Brass Coast.
I think it still is.
Yeah,
I'm not entirely sure.
Okay, cool. So their presence here would be a disaster, not least because it would threaten the Dust Parador. The Parador is located in a prime spot in the western Jade Range, next to one of the main roads heading towards Segura and Madruga. Whether the Parched are being drawn to Parador by the trade in Mithril, the luxurious accommodation, or just following the road is not possible to know at this point. What is certain is that it would be a disaster if they're not stopped.
Yeah, I'm just going to zoom in on what the Dust Parador is.
Yes.
Because that is the thing they are heading towards, and we are worried about them destroying.
Yes.
Is there any obvious indication as to what it is?
Parador of Dust. So it looks like it might be it's a ministry.
Right.
So someone's ministry is under threat, basically.
Oh, it's a very straightforward ministry. It looks like you can trade money for Mithril.
Fair enough.
So
one particular person, it's going to be like, oh crap, my
ministry be in danger.
Ministry is in danger.
I will briefly explain what a ministry is. A ministry is a permanent structure that has someone that heads it up. They all have different titles, whether they're mistresses or masters or lords, or it depends on the region.
Yeah.
But there is someone who owns that ministry. It will be a real person, it'll be a player. And that person will have the power to exchange something for something else, basically.
Ministries are a bit different because they can do like different levels.
Yes.
Like you don't have to use like the full extent of the ministry. You can use a little bit if you want to, because they all get paid for by like the imperial coin.
Yes.
So
the Dust Parador allows whoever owns it to exchange money for wains of Mithril, which are very valuable. A very easy and straightforward way to convert money into Mithril. There are loads of other ministries, dozens and dozens of them, where you can exchange herbs for metals and metals for potions, swords for money. Normally, the ministries that have one of the larger resources annexed to them, things like weirwood, mithril, white granite, are more highly valued because those resources are always in short supply. There's always a limited number of them, and any way that you can get your hands on more of them, it's always a good thing.
Yes.
So I can see why they would want to protect this place.
Though I really should get into like ministries at some point and talk about them, because there's some really cool economical stuff about it. But maybe that's more of an in-game kind of thing. But it's definitely worth looking into.
It's cool. I think it's.
You wouldn't think it's cool. You wouldn't think it's cool to learn about the economy, but it is actually very cool. So.
I think the short form explanation is that there's a serious cash flow issue. But
So there is a conjunction to the area, which is perfectly timed to allow a group of Imperial heroes to destroy the Dry Patrician leading the Force if they can overcome the Parched long enough to perform the ritual. Doing so will not be easy, but if they fail, then the Dust Parador will be able to buy no more than 12 wains of Mithril following the next spring equinox. If the Blight takes hold, that amount will drop by 3 wains every season until no Mithril is available.
Less gone.
There is a complicating factor. Scouts report that the presence of the Lasambrian champion in the area, Hiltar of the Jaboon. According to the local rumors, this orc has been poking around the Jade Range, investigating the Parch. He seems to be a disciple of vigilance. He carries a relic of his faith and is concerned by the threat posed by the Parch to the Lasambrian lands. Many of the Lasambrians claim much of the Brass Coast were once their lands. According to the latest reports, this orc has been badly wounded battling the Parched. Hiltar's fate will be in the hands of the Imperial heroes, assuming they can defeat the Parched. Given that it is a clear threat to the Dust Parador, it is the responsibility of the mistress of the Dust Parador, Nemi Rikeza, to destroy the patrician and deal with the Lassambrian champion.
Yeah, so unsurprisingly, the responsibility for organising this skirmish falls to the owner of the Dust Parador, the relevant ministry. There is a little bit more cooking here than previous. There is a random orc wandering around
foreign nation
that may or may not be very helpful.
Yeah.
There's another opportunity to destroy a rune marked tri-patrician. Importantly, you will need to bring your own ritual casters. There is, unlike the previous skirmish, where there is someone that can that one guy that can do himself. He's not there anymore. So you'll need to supplement your force with casters and things like that. So a slightly more, maybe a more difficult option, but one that needs people's attention nonetheless.
Yeah. Okay, we've got the Lux Springs. So the third patrician, the one marked with the Neve rune, which I believe is the hunger one.
That one's hunger. I knew it the whole time.
Yorn is heading. Runa is heading south for the Lux Springs in Segura. Their presence here is a significant risk. They need to be destroyed to prevent the region being succumb to the Blight. The Lux Springs are home to the newly regained Ceravado nets, which provides a valuable bounty of Ilium. So I assume this is probably a ministry. Is it? It's a boss seat. Okay.
So really, yeah, the Ilium is very, very, very much rarer than any other resource.
The nets are not under threat yet, but if the region becomes blighted, then output would be damaged next season. Destroying the dry patrician would ensure the Lux Springs are safe from the blight for the next year at least. However, there may be additional opportunities. A herald of the Crucible has conveyed a message from his eternal master. The Azoth wishes the Empire to recover some of the dust from this specific patrician's corpse. Apparently, Azoth is fascinated by the transformation that has taken place to cause this rune to appear and wishes to make study of it. If the Empire can bring some part of the dust left behind the dry patrician, then the Eternal will share whatever they can learn about its mystery with the Empire. But Azoth goes further, however. They have apparently been collaborating with an Imperial magician, Bakar Rikeza, to try and find a way to create an alchemical substance that might destroy the Parched. The ideal would be an alchemical concoction that would destroy the dry patrician, but thus far that has evaded them. However, by collaborating with Azoth, God, I keep wanting to say Azoth, Bakar Rikeza has developed a ritual that allows him to create a substance that will destroy the Ashwalkers, at least the least powerful of the Parch, quickly and efficiently. The Azoth claims to have used their powers to help Bakar Rikeza formulate the ritual, which has allowed them to create a ritual text for the spell. If what the Eternal says is true, then this could be a valuable weapon against the Blight. Bakar Rikeza is the Hekima of salt and sand, which is built in the shadow of the towers of Quasar in Madruga, not far from the edge of the Blight. It isn't directly threatened yet, but given Azoth's involvement with Bakar Rikeza and their experience working with the Hekima of the Brass Coast, the civil service considers the Freeborn magician to be responsible for overseeing the conjunction.
So I'm not sure in terms of who is responsible for that skirmish, obviously it's Bakar.
Yep.
And I'm like, is Bakar a real person?
I assume they're a player.
So
it kind of has to be.
What that looks like then is pretty cool stuff, because that means that there is not only is there a real player out there that's, in charge of this function, but that real player has been independently researching ways to create this alchemical substance to destroy the Parched, and has come up with a solution by themselves that is going to help greatly. I don't see any reason why that can't be proliferated amongst all of the other conjunctions as well.
Yeah.
So that's very, very cool. And there's potential for further information if that dust is recovered and given to Azoth.
Preparations. To ensure the best possible chance of success, Misler's report includes information on what Imperial heroes might face when fighting the Parched. She notes that neither Ashwalkers or the Dry Patricians can be permanently destroyed without the use of magic. The winter magic that animates them will keep the constructs moving no matter how much damage they take. To destroy an Ashwalker requires a ritualist to perform turns of the circle on the body. Ritual is magnitude 4, so it ought to be relatively easy for the spring ritualist to cast. Crucially, it can affect more than one Ashwalker if the bodies are close enough to the ritual, and the ritual is cast at a higher magnitude. The creatures do not seem to be able to regain animation once the ritual begins.
Great. So you can effectively freeze and then kill a bunch of them if you cast Turn the Circle.
Very cool. Much more difficult for a single magician that is attempting to cast Words of Ending at magnitude 18. There is at least one powerful highborn master of day magic able to cast rituals of that magnitude without a coven at Anvil, but it is not known if there are any of winter or spring ritualists who can achieve such a feat. The Archmage of Winter may be best placed to know who to ask, but they could also provide other assistance if they wished. They are the bearer of the Chain of Ash, which could reduce the magnitude of a winter ritual by 10, which could make it significantly easier to perform. If not, then items such as those used by Gideon to the farthest shore, a ring of adversity or a tune's ring, the phlegmatic staff, or decoctions of the hungry moon could all be of benefit.
So there's lots of things cropping up there in that particular bit. Lots and lots of ways that you can go and prepare to be for this skirmish.
Yeah.
Lots of items, lots of people to talk to that already have the items to make things easier. Lots of contacts that need to be made to be able to cast that ritual of magnitude 18.
Cool. And whatever preparations are planned, Lutomizlia warns that the Dry Patricians are known to be able to unleash a wave of winter magic at their enemies that weakens them. This is a powerful effect, similar to the howling despite of the yawning maw. However, Lutomizlia points out that the range of such magic is very limited. Anyone further than 20 feet from the Dry Patrician would not be affected. The right battle plan might ensure that only some of the heroes are hit by the curse. Whatever happens, previous encounters have proved that methods to cure weakness will be invaluable. Blade Root is the obvious herb to take, provided there are physics able to apply it. Fever Flail Elixir is more expensive, but would be the dependable way to mitigate the effects of winter magic. The Purify spell and rituals such as Renewed Strength in the New Day could also work, but unlike potions and herbs, their use relies on magicians not being weakened themselves. Last but not least, the wounds inflicted by the Parched can be deadly. Those returning to Anvil should visit the Anvil Field Hospital or consult their own physic if they have suffered any severe wounds in the battle. Such injuries can be worse than they appear and can prove fatal if left.
They're zombies. They're zombies.
They might be zombies. Who knows?
So yeah, a bunch more stuff you can do to go and get ready, a bunch more rituals you can cast, a bunch more potions. Obviously, do whatever you want to prepare. These are just some recommendations put forward by PT.
Also cool for them to recommend the Anvil Field Hospital. It was originally a player-made thing.
Oh, really?
So it's like they're like, now you are thoroughly part of lore. They might have done this plenty of times before, but still very cool to reference. The Field
Hospital is very, very cool.
Ending the threat. If all the 3 rune-marked Dry Patricians are destroyed, then that will stop the Blight expanding for at least the next year. There is no telling what might happen at that point, but it would buy the Empire some time to ensure that no more land was poisoned with salt and dust. The Blight would be contained in the Blight Heart, at least for the time being. To deal with the threat once and for all would require the Empire to find a way to remove the source of the Blight. This is difficult as the blighted area is effectively impassable to mortals. The heroes of Anvil might attempt a brief sojourn there, courtesy of the Sentinel Gate, but death would come quickly for anyone who tarried there for long. Without a suitable conjunction, it is not possible at this time for magicians to get to the centre of the Blight to study and work out how it might be countered. However, there is some evidence that Aldea de Tutamen family of the Great Grasses were the original source of the Blight. There is talk that they experimented with powerful winter rituals, attempting to return life to some mummified remains.
They're zombies.
Why they thought this would work is unclear. Imperial magic has never discovered a way to bring dead back to life. Any such efforts that don't simply fall outright always result in something twisted and dangerous that can only be considered to be a resurrection in the very loosest sense. Evidently, this attempt was no exception to that rule, but the Tutamens may have unleashed the curse on Madruga through their actions.
Yeah, it sounds like they've somehow constructed this thing that draws life from around it to power itself, but never truly comes back to life properly.
Yeah.
And so just constantly consumes.
And whatever the source, it is clearly an ongoing effect, and given it's going to be ongoing for more than a year now, it seems more than likely that it will continue until it's all dealt with. But until they're in a position to study the source of the curse, the Order can't offer immediate insight.
So deal with the problem of them hammering on the borders now. We'll look at the source later.
Yeah. However, Lutemizla is aware that the Assembly of Nine has asked the Silent Bell to investigate the Blight heart of Madruga, its connections to the Tutamen family of the Brass Coast, and their place in the history of Highguard. The Silent Bell gather much of their information through mundane means, and it is possible that they will be able to provide the Empire with more information on the source of the Blight in Madruga. Hopefully, that will present a way to resolve the matter once and for all, or at least present an avenue to explore their option. The report will be delivered at the spring equinox. Anyone interested in finding out more about how to attend to the threat of the Blight should confer with them.
Sorry, can you just go back over that last bit?
Yes.
So the report will be delivered at the spring. Oh, okay, yeah. So you've instructed the Silent Bell. Silent Bell are going to report back to the Assembly of Nine, which is... who is the Assembly of Nine?
That's the...
Is the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And then if there is a way of dealing with the Blight at the centre...
Or some understanding of where they come from, the history of Highguard as well.
Yeah, it will be revealed then. So if you want to beat the heart of the Blight, go speak to the Assembly of Nine.
Yep. Go find a cardinal. Participation, Unfettered Mind. Any member of the Unfettered Mind is free to roleplay that they took part in the actions of the Order over the past season in Madruga, and is free to create their own stories of their visit within reason. It has likely been dangerous that any member of the Order can email plot with your CID before 10 p.m. on the 8th of June in 3 days to receive a traumatic wound in your pack.
Yes, so if you want a traumatic wound to limp back to Anvil with, then you can. That's very cool.
Very cool. Healing the land. Removing the cause of the Blight won't do anything to repair the damage the curse has already caused. Regrow the land's heart would provide some help, but the ritual speeds the natural regrowth of the land. It is not powerful enough to move a blasted wasteland like the Blight, no more than it could remove the Black Plateau. To try and undo the damage that has caused would require something more drastic.
Okay.
A Vate from the Unfettered Mind. Diane of Eagle Striding has created an arcane projection that would be powerful enough to heal the land. The spring ritual they propose is difficult, with a magnitude of 140, and might well prove contentious. Their plan is to cause the Scorero to swell with water to the point where it bursts its banks and floods the surrounding land. There would be damage to the bridges over the Scorero and flooding along the course of the rivers. However, the Great Grasses was a large, flat, low-lying plain, and much of the flood waters wash out over the region. With enough power, the ritual would be able to wash the area clean.
Very interesting.
Very cool. There are obvious flaws to this approach, not least that the bridges over the river would almost certainly be destroyed by the floods, and there would be damage to imperial property on either side of the Scorero. Gosh. Such rituals have met with significant opposition in recent times, but most of that has come from the Marchers, and this ritual definitely wouldn't take effect anywhere outside of the Brass Coast, so that should be less of a problem. The Vate has opted to send the arcane projection to the Grand Master of the Unfettered Mind so they can decide what, if anything, to do with it. If the decision is made to cast the ritual, Lutemizla suggests that it would be prudent for the magicians involved to seek the endorsement of the conclave for their actions before casting the ritual.
Yes, if you're going to make a massive flood happen.
Yeah, across multiple regions.
Even if it's good for the environment, as it were, maybe just get the sign-off from conclave first.
However, Lutemizla cautions that the Scorero is a very fast-flowing, powerful river, which is suffused with ilium washed down from the mountains. That there was a source of wealth of the Scorero nets and the successes of the Ceravado nets. It will also make the effects of this ritual harder to predict. There are likely to be long-lasting effects, some which could be permanent. The great grasses have been destroyed by the Blight. They are now nothing but a desert of ash and salt. There is no magic that can return them to their former state. But Diane's ritual would provide a way to replace the Blight with something that could at least sustain life. One other flaw in the ritual is that it can only be cast when the water levels in the Scorero River have peaked. That is during the summer solstice.
So not the upcoming event.
Mm-hmm.
The upcoming event being the spring equinox.
Yes. The ritual would have to be performed not at this summit, but the next.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, the Empire would need to wait a year. Whatever decision Lutemisla strongly suggests that the conclave discuss the proposal, because, well, one thing I also assume from this, just as an aside, I assume we can't just do this while the Grendel have Madruga, and also while the Parched are still there, because it just gives them more things to drain again. I'm not sure.
I guess if that's what you're getting at, yeah. I would.
We'd just be washing some zombies out to sea.
I guess it would return the land. If it does return the land to its kind of like former health, but they're still there, and then it will start to get drained again immediately. I would, which implies that if there is an option to do it at E3, there might be a solution to the heart of the Blight by E3 as well.
Yeah.
Reading between the lines. For me, as I read through this kind of like, we need to make the area super wet. There is a separate illegal wind of fortune by a certain spring eternal where you can cast like heavy rain and things like that on an area
and like flood things as well.
I'm thinking that that could also be a way of doing it.
Someone could just do it illegally,
albeit illegally,
or through the Eternal if it's all sorted out bureaucratically. But yes, interesting. So whatever the decision, Lutemisla strongly suggests that the conclave discuss the proposal with Lord Rain. The Eternal has amity and was already freely offered in their help in tackling the Blight Heart. Given that the Eternal's association with Rain and their concern with healing and the preservation of life, it seems certain they could offer valuable help with the ritual if the Empire was prepared to ask them. The Archmage of Spring could do so easily using the power of plenipotentiary, but that would of course mean giving up the opportunity to ask the Cupbearer or any other Spring Eternal on aid on other matters. Lutemisla does have one final word of warning. In the strongest possible terms, she admonishes that the ritual to flood the great grasses should not be cast until the source of the curse is dealt with.
As you say.
As I said. Otherwise, the Imperial Empire will be flooding a region with spring magic while the area continues to labor under an active winter curse. Both Lutemisla and Diane disavow all responsibility for the outcome if the Empire chooses to use the ritual in this way.
No, like if you guys are fools, and you flood this area while they're still there,
it's not my problem.
That's on you.
We just told you to do it the right way. So, okay. So, Grand Lodge. So it looks like there's a commission potentially coming up. Lutemisla has worked conscientiously with the unfettered mind to look at ways that they can use experimental magic to defeat the dry patricians and tackle the problems caused by the Blight. However, they were not the first conclave order to apply their skills and knowledge to the problems in Madruga. Local Hakima asked the conclave for help, and the Silver Chalice stepped in to utilize healing magic for the good of the Empire. The skills and knowledge of their members have already provided useful insight and aid in countering the Blight. Lutemisla believes that with the right changes and investment, they could do so again. What Lutemisla imagines is the application of the Silver Chalice's manifesto. In recent times, the Empire has been beset by disasters of one kind or another. Rituals and other natural phenomena have brought disaster and wrought strife. The Order's manifesto states that the strength of the Empire relies on its citizens. Thus, by keeping its citizens healthy, we strengthen the Empire. With the ability to organize members, the Silver Chalice could act decisively and respond quickly, with members dispatched to tackle the problems of illness or suffering. To allow the order to act effectively, they would need a Senate motion to commission a Grand Lodge. This would be a single location to house members of the order, to support their research and their work, and serve as a central point for organising any response in future. It would require a commission and need 20 wains of white granite, 20 wains of mithril, 120 crowns would take 3 months to complete. Once finished, it would provide a number of benefits. Lutemizler's designs incorporate a comfortable residence for the Grand Master of the Order. While they wouldn't need to live at the Grand Lodge, their presence there would help the smooth running of the Order. So it makes sense to encourage that. The rooms would not be palatial, but they would include a study and a personal library, something befitting the Empire's preeminent magical healer.
Yeah, can you just scroll up a little bit? I just want to look at the actual box itself up there. Right, I was just trying to figure out exactly what it does, basically. But it does seem to give more autonomy to the Silver Chalice to do things without having a specific thing to follow up on.
Yes, so it's not like we have to commission them very specifically to do something.
Yeah, it's not like something comes up and you can use the Silver Chalice. The Silver Chalice sort of becomes a resource for research at any point.
Which is cool.
Always good to add another research string to the bow.
More importantly, having recognised a meeting place for magicians of the Conclave would encourage donations to the font. It would help boost the Conclave's resources. Lutemizler's prognostications show that once the lodge was complete, it would provide a steady income of 15 mana into the font each season. While small, this would be in addition to any mana derived from its members. Based on the manifesto's order, the lodge would enable the Grand Master to ask members of the Silver Chalice to travel anywhere. Their unique combinations of interest and skills might be a benefit. To do that would require the same method that all Grand Masters currently use to issue such a request, a declaration of concord, which must be declared on behalf of the Order. No order will respond to a request by a Grand Master of a different order or another Conclave officer for that matter. However, that's the same issue as the rod and shield thing earlier.
People not to the wrong people, basically.
However, the Silver Chalice could issue requests to members of their order without waiting for the civil service to identify a suitable opportunity for them to help, as happened this time with the Unfettered Mind and the Rod and Shield. The Silver Chalice could be asked to look into any ongoing event or problem where healing was required. To achieve a positive outcome, there would have to be a situation where members of the Order could bring succor to the people who have been harmed by war, disaster, or malevolent magic. Provided the incident they were looking into was relevant to the expertise of the Silver Chalice, then it would result in an opportunity to address the problem. If the Order were asked to look into ways to construct a bridge over a river, for example, then there would be negligible benefits arising from that.
I think that's really cool. I don't think I've seen anything like that in the previous Winds of War or in the Winds of Fortune or in the Winds of Fortune up to this point.
Yeah.
A lot of the buildings and things like that, a lot of the commissions that you're able to establish provide this very tangible benefit of a resource or a fortification or an army or a navy or something like that. This provides more game. This allows a player to say that they are interested in a specific area. Is their game there? Yeah. It
provides potential for more opportunities, which is always nice.
Always very good. I think we should. I don't know about my in-character view, but my out-of-character view is that we should be investing in as many new opportunities as possible. Yeah. Especially with the swelling size of the player base.
Yes. Okay. So, are these options for places?
Sorry, there was one more sentence.
Oh, Lutemizler has identified 3 possible locations for the Grand Lodge. All the benefits described above would be available regardless of where the Grand Lodge was built, but the following locations might be even more beneficial. Kuzar, Lightsea, Madruga. Building the Grand Lodge of the Silver Chalice in Madruga would help focus minds on magical disasters like the Blight. It would give the magicians of the Order a chance to study the Blight, but even once that is dealt with, there would be valuable additional benefits. Kuzar is a bustling settlement that serves an annual meeting place of the Hikima of the Brass Coast. They are guardians of magical law and Freeborn tribe, with the responsibility to act the interests of the nation rather than personal or family loyalty. Perhaps more importantly, they enjoy the service of groups of Kohan who fight to protect the Hakima. Basing the Ground Lodge at the Silver Chalice would ensure that the Order had access to enough brave warriors to ensure they not need fear for their lives when asked to investigate a dangerous location. It wouldn't remove security worries completely, but it would mean that the Order's magicians were protected as they could be.
So place it there, they can go into more dangerous areas, basically.
Though Madruga currently not accessible.
Oh, great, no.
High Chalcis Mount, Rakos. Okay, building the Ground Lodge in Rakos would focus the Order on healing wounds that were the result of war. War can leave deep wounds even on the land itself. Rakos was left scarred and devastated by the Druge occupation, as the Druge tried to break the spirit of the people they were conquered. There are people living in Rakos today who would benefit from the healing wisdom of the Silver Chalice, but there could be other benefits. High Chalcis is the center of highborn herb craft and helps to boost the production of herb gardens across the territory. There are more herbalists in High Chalcis than anywhere else in Highguard, and they benefit from access to a deep supply of herbs. Basing the Ground Lodge at the Silver Chalice would ensure the Grandmaster could purchase enough herbs to reduce the chance that their supply would run too low to be able to help whilst in Anvil or elsewhere.
It effectively creates a little ministry, and where you're able to exchange money for a set of random herbs.
Random herbs, very cool. And then we've got New Dunhall, Woodheath, Hanmark. Building a Grand Lodge in Hanmark would focus the Order on restoring the well-being of those who suffered in natural disasters. Entire settlements disappeared until the Dunsfall sinkhole when it opened, reflecting the grave threat that such disasters pose. The sinkhole is stable now, but there would be other benefits of building the Grand Lodge there. The Grimnir tradition is well established in Wintermark, and those who put healing arts before their own heroism is given the highest respect for their sacrifice. They can usually count on the support of fellow Wintermarkers, including some of the finest artisans in the Empire. Establishing the lodge here would allow the Grandmaster to purchase valuable magic items suitable for healing as part of the benefits to be had.
Yes, and so building it here effectively adds on like the mini ministry ability to exchange money for healing items.
Yeah, which is very cool.
So one of the three places, if they go forward with this commission, they'll have to select one of those three places effectively.
For like the best boons, I guess.
Yes.
But yeah, so that's all the Winds of Fortune for today.
Yeah, that's all on Parched Earth.
There is one more, but I think we will leave that one for another day.
Yes.
I think it's going to be probably Friday we'll be back.
Yeah. We'll have a think about it.
Yeah. So we'll figure out either probably like Friday or Saturday. We'll let people know and just keep your eyes out, and we'll figure something.
We'll keep going, because the one thing you can't do, I always say this, is fall behind on the winds. I think doing a couple, 2 to 3 of them every time we sit down seems to really work.
Yeah.
We can really kind of get into it there. But we'll leave it there. We'll pick up Long Shadows next time.
Yep.
And any other winds that have been released since then.
Yes, and that should be quite exciting, because this one's about the Imperial Orcs. So
that's
see
cool.
that.
That's pretty cool. And if you missed any of if you missed kind of a part of this, all the VODs are uploaded directly, so you can go back and watch any part of it.
Great. So we will see you next time, and remember, he who laughs last. Yeah.
Perfect.
Nailed
every time.
Great.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.